A crazy schedule can make it easy to fall back into your dinner time recipe rut. Keep mealtime exciting with over 40 recipes to choose from every week, so there's always something delicious to discover with HelloFresh. With HelloFresh, you get farm-fresh, pre-portioned ingredients and seasonal recipes delivered right to your doorstep. Skip trips to the grocery store and count on HelloFresh to make home cooking easy, fun, and affordable. That's why it's America's #1 meal kit. With so many in-season ingredients, you'll taste all the freshness of fall in every bite of HelloFresh's chef-crafted recipes. Produce travels from the farm to your door for peak ripeness you can taste. We all know HelloFresh takes the hassle out of mealtime, but did you know it can also save you money? HelloFresh is cheaper than grocery shopping and 25% less expensive than takeout. That means less stress in your day and more money back in your pocket. HelloFresh makes cooking so easy and fast. It's something that I really need in my life and really look forward to. Go to hellofresh.com/55minute and use code 55minute for 50% off plus free shipping. That's hellofresh.com/55minute and use code 55minute for 50% off plus free shipping. HelloFresh, America's #1 meal kit. Coming up on 5-Minute News. Video released of deputy executing exonerated black man. US resumes deportation flights to Venezuela. And Biden makes deal with Egypt to restart aid to Gaza. It's Thursday, October 19. I'm Anthony Davis. A Georgia deputy fatally shot a man at point-blank range during a traffic stop after the man, who had been wrongfully imprisoned years ago, grabbed the officer by the neck and was forcing his head backward, according to video released by a sheriff yesterday. The family of 53-year-old Leonard Cure viewed the dash and body camera video before Camden County Sheriff Jim Proctor's office posted it online. Relatives said they suspect Cure resisted being arrested because of psychological trauma from spending 16 years imprisoned in Florida for an armed robbery he didn't commit. The sheriff released the video 2 days after one of his deputies, who is white, pulled over Cure's pickup truck on suspicion of reckless driving and after a struggle fatally shot him on Interstate 95, a few miles north of the Georgia-Florida line. Cure had been visiting his mother in Port St. Lucie, Florida, and was returning to a home he bought recently in Metro Atlanta. The video shows the deputy shouting several times for Cure to get out of his vehicle. Cure exits from the driver's side door, but at first refuses a command to put his hands on the back of the truck. Cure complies after the deputy threatens to use a stun gun on him. With his hands on the truck, he questions why he was pulled over. When Cure ignores commands to put his hands behind his back, the deputy fires his stun gun, shocking Cure with electrified prongs connected to the weapon by wires. The video shows Cure spin around and start flailing his arms as if trying to break free of the wire. In the video, Cure slumps to the ground and the deputy can be seen holding his handgun. He shouts at Cure to stay on the ground, then raises his radio. The sheriff has placed the deputy, whose name has not been released, on administrative leave during a review by the Georgia Bureau of Investigation, which is customary in Georgia for shootings involving law enforcement officers. Studies show black Americans face a disproportionate risk of being killed by police or wrongfully convicted of crimes compared to white people. Both happened to Cure. After viewing the video, Cure's relatives said they still believe shooting him was unnecessary. Civil rights attorney Ben Crump, who is representing the family, blamed the deputy for acting aggressively from the start and never attempting to de-escalate the conflict. Deportation flights of Venezuelans from the US resumed yesterday, with the first plane of more than 100 migrants landing back in their economically troubled country under the Biden administration's latest attempts to deal with swelling numbers of asylum seekers. This is the first time in years that U.S. immigration authorities are deporting people to the South American nation, marking a significant concession by the government of Venezuela's President Nicolás Maduro to a longtime adversary. The first plane, a Boeing 737, took off from the Texas border city of Harlingen and touched down in Miami before arriving hours later outside Caracas, Venezuela's capital. The roughly 130 passengers were Venezuelan women and men who were shuttled to the plane on buses and wore wrist and ankle restraints. As they boarded, U.S. immigration officers patted them down. Biden's administration said it plans to have multiple deportation flights a week to Venezuela, according to a U.S. Transportation Department waiver on travel restrictions, which would place Venezuela among the top international destinations for U.S. immigration authorities. The deportees will find a homeland that is still in the midst of complex social, political, and economical crises. The Venezuelan government said it had entered into an agreement with the U.S. government that allows the orderly, safe, and legal repatriation of Venezuelan citizens from the United States. In a statement issued when the flights were first announced, Maduro's government blamed recent migration on economic sanctions and said it would assist deportees with resources. The U.S. has struggled for years to deport people to countries with which it has strained diplomatic relations, including Venezuela, Cuba, and Nicaragua. After a hiatus of more than 2 years, Cuba allowed for the resumption of U.S. deportations in April, with deportation flights there operating only about once a month. Egypt agreed to reopen its border crossing with the Gaza Strip to allow aid to reach Palestinians, the U.S. said, as the humanitarian crisis worsened in the narrow enclave and anti-Israel protests flared across the Middle East. The region remained volatile in the aftermath of an explosion at Gaza's Al-Ali hospital late on Tuesday, which Palestinian officials said killed 471 people and blamed on what they said was an Israeli airstrike. Israel and the US said the cause was a failed rocket launch by anti-Israeli Palestinian militants in Gaza who denied responsibility. Lior Hayat, spokesman for Israel's foreign ministry, said on social media that at the hospital several dozen people were apparently killed, a much lower toll than reported by Palestinian officials. Amid outrage over the hospital explosion, demonstrations erupted in the Israeli-occupied Palestinian West Bank, Iran, Jordan, Lebanon, Tunisia, and elsewhere. Israeli forces shot dead 2 Palestinian teenagers in the West Bank during protests, while Lebanese security forces fired tear gas and water cannon at protesters throwing projectiles near the U.S. Embassy. While flying home from a less than 8-hour visit to Israel, U.S. President Joe Biden discussed aid for Gaza with the Egyptian president by phone late last night. Biden told reporters that Sisi agreed to open the Rafah crossing from Egypt to Gaza to allow about 20 trucks carrying humanitarian aid into the enclave, where people are desperately short of food, water, fuel, and other essentials after Israel unleashed a blockade and airstrikes 12 days ago. 5 Minute News is an Evergreen podcast covering politics, inequality, health, and climate, delivering independent, unbiased, and essential world news daily.